and moves were made. Hands were shook, money exchanged hands, possibly drugs. But it was all good. It was all in the name of fantasy football.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dynasty. Like I said, we all see things differently.
Put it on his shirt!
I just drank what tasted like a root beer, but now I'm feeling kind of tipsy.
I would like to know who you guys are most looking forward to playing.
Robin. Both. It's easy, Robin.
We're good like that.
Ride that unicorn, my friend.
I was really going to do an awful Mexican accent, and I realized how mad I'd be at someone else for doing that. So, hi.
We all are very intrigued and very interested in what will happen this year.
Do we look as good as the two heads over there?
That's a great question, and we will answer that here in Robin's Sex Dungeon, this episode of the Dynasty Podcast. I'm Peter Livingston, joined by
Robin Brown Ward.
Of the
Sex Dungeon?
Is that going to be a new team name?
Above Ground Sex Dungeon? Oh, I'm of Fart Apocalypse.
There you go.
Now one of the few names that has remained the same for the entirety of the league.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Since Joe changed his to team this week. And I think the only other ones would be you.
Right.
And Elliot has been Nate Silver's Sith. Though I think he had to change his name for a week here and there. I made him be 50 Shades of Pays, I want to say.
Which was very popular. That was one of the...
So I think it might be you and I. No, Marcos has been belching beavers the entire time.
That's true.
So...
But we are the longest.
So, yay for consistency.
All right.
I know it's something that you love.
That's my motto. But this is we are a Dynasty, a keeper podcast. This is the seasonal podcast in which 12 friends can't even make the draft day without hating one another.
It got real pretty fast.
It got real. I think we need to call a universal truce and just hit the reset button.
I agree. I mean, that was a lot of animosity and albeit I was part of it mostly because I was involved in trade negotiations and then,
Sure.
Elliot, who will be the first to admit that he made a mistake and did. So I'm not going to bag on him, but
Right.
I was shocked at the way that went down that morning.
I definitely think that the league as a whole, we need to everybody just...
Yeah, it's time to reset.
Reset, let's let bygones be bygones, and we'll go forward.
But ultimately, for the first time, and I think that's part of it in this league, is that we have a major kind of dichotomy of, contending teams that are, it's a very front-heavy league, and then there's 7 other teams that, are going to have to strike gold to compete. It would appear at the moment.
Or play the spoiler in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, we did. We had our draft this past Sunday. It was a lot of fun. Lot of action to be had, and I failed as a podcast producer because I forgot to change my settings back to the typical podcast settings that I use from recording my online conversations, and I just recorded nothing but room noise for about 2 hours.
Nice.
So
nice.
There will be no live production of the draft this year.
It goes both ways, though, because our second year, we had a 3-hour, just super drunken draft recording that was the entire draft.
A lot of
start
yelling.
To finish, and there was just JJ, save me a waffle type shit going on in the background. It was just, so. And then we had this one where we had a recording failure. So,
yeah.
I think that...
That could be the universe telling me that we shouldn't record drafts.
I think you had the right plan this time, which was to record kind of a pre-draft show, record a couple segments, and then record a after-draft sort of show. But I think the problem is after the draft, everyone is just mentally exhausted. Aside from a few of us that only had a few picks that were just dicking around for the latter part of it. But...
No, totally. It's a long time when you think about it because you get there, and then even when you don't, I had 5, 6 picks. Like, not a lot, but you're still very much engaged. It's very tense because I think for the most part, people have targets in their head that they're hoping.
Yep.
And it's that anxiety, the anticipation, and then...
This, for me, was the most stress-free that I've ever had in this one. Now, granted, I only had 5 picks.
Right.
So it wasn't a ton. But I already knew what was going to happen with my first 2. You know, I was going to get to choose, or I was going to get 2 of the, 2 out of 3 of the AB, Julio, McCoy grouping. And I was fine with any 2 of those 3. You know, no matter what happened. So I already knew that was fine. So those were like almost non-picks. The only thing that would have surprised me would have been if he had taken Zeke.
Right.
And in which case I still would have been fine with what I was going to do. But that would have surprised me. So, and then watching, what I knew what was going to happen next was I was going to get to watch the rest of the first round and the second round unfold. And I felt, based on the draft prep that I had done, that I had put myself in a position in the third round to snag the leftovers, the panic leftovers of the, it's the second round. I got a player here. I need to get I got an RB1. I need a WR1, or I got a wide receiver 1. I need a RB2, whatever it is in those sections, or, I don't really like that player, so I'm going to get a quarterback, or I'm going to get a tight end, whatever it is. I feel like round 2 in our league has been a panic round in a lot of the previous years. And so I knew that the number of players that I had ranked, there was a tier that was going to hit that was right around where my picks were in the third round. And I couldn't have been happier with how those landed. So by the time that played out, by the time it got to the end of the second round, I knew that like 4 players that I was really stoked on were going to be there for me in my third round picks, and then the fourth round pick was just kind of like just take something that was going to work.
Right. And we're going to dive into these picks, and as we go through them, even the first round, we'll get your take on there since Robinson joining me as co-host. I'll be picking your brain a little bit, looking at the draft.
Yeah.
But even from the time that I did my pre-draft podcast, the one that got posted, not the one that I did on draft day, we had the morning of the draft, before we dive into the draft itself, we had Elliott trade away his number 4 overall pick to Matt Keiser for essentially an old stale ham sandwich without
pretty
ham
much.
Or cheese.
It was I'm not sure there was any ham, cheese, or bread. I think it was just like a cup of mayonnaise.
Old mayonnaise.
Unfortunately, and we heard him justify it. And again, I don't want to rag on him too harshly, because I think there's no one that thinks that he messed up more than himself.
Right.
So, but at the same time, sometimes there are the best deals are the ones that you don't make. Just because you think you need to make it doesn't mean that you should. And these were deals that I was involved in, and I ended up backing out at the last minute. I've been involved in a lot of trade discussions on these first-round picks. One, because I needed to know what was happening, like if Joe was going to get that number 1 pick, or if Joe was going to get that number 4 pick. That was my main thing. Was like, I can't have, if Joe's going to get those picks, I need to drive the price up.
Right.
And I need to make sure that if he's getting it, he's going to pay for it. So, the details. And I ended up making good offers to everyone on those things. It just didn't quite work out. And at the same time, kind of, I could have gone either way. I would have been stoked to have those picks, obviously, and at the same time, my draft next year is still intact. So I don't have any. I didn't give up anything, and so that's good. But yeah, Elliott, man, oof, that was rough.
Traded away the number 4 overall, He received a combination of Cameron Meredith
And Jarvis Landry.
and Jarvis
right?
Landry. I believe the trade itself hasn't completely gone through
And a fourth
in the
round pick.
league, and he traded that away. And then what ended up happening was literally at the time of the trade, Cameron Meredith blows out his knee,
Like
done for the year.
literally 30 minutes afterwards, ACL gone.
So lots
for
of
the year.
controversy, lots of craziness. I lost Julian Edelman
Yep.
the night before or 2 nights before, who had a non-contact knee injury, who I was keeping in the 10th round, I think. I think it was the 8th round. So that put a little bit of a hit in terms of my flexibility with wide receiver, because then all of a sudden, now I needed to get a backup wide receiver, which he was. So other than that, some of the other things that happened, the Cameron Meredith thing was huge. Keys are moving up into the 4th overall pick, gave him 4 first-round picks. He
Yep.
had the number 1 overall, 4 overall, 8 overall, and then 11 overall, in which he was keeping Melvin Gordon with the 11th overall pick.
Yeah.
So that gave him a lot of wiggle room. So
And then the other injury news was Spencer Ware.
Spencer Ware was the other one. Again, was it night before or same day?
Same day. Same
Also
day.
got hurt, and the extent, I don't think the full extent of the injury has been revealed, but it's enough to know that he's pretty much going to be done.
They
for
they
almost all
believe
the
that
year.
he needs season-ending
Right.
knee surgery.
Right. So
The team does. That's what they're saying.
So it pretty much catapulted Kareem Hunt. I thought that he could potentially go as high as the first round after that, given the situation that being in Kansas City and their track record with feature backs,
And Andy Reid and what he likes to do.
and the fact that they are usually a jack of all trades. They catch passes, they run inside and outside the tackles. The screen game is huge. They don't throw to wide receivers apparently in Kansas City. It's pretty much the running back and the tight end, and then occasionally they throw it out to a wide receiver sometimes. Maybe Tyreek Hill, but Hunt got a huge boost.
Yes.
Also affecting Elliott, who was on his team.
Yep. Elliott basically, the morning of the draft, he just got torpedoed. Between the trade that he made and whether you could believe it or not, I mean, we always have the reactions to things like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. But maybe Cameron Meredith turned out to be, the 8th best wide receiver in fantasy football, and Jarvis Landry was the 15th, and the 4th round pick that he chose was great. And you look back on it and go, oh, okay, well, that worked out fine. And maybe AJ Green gets hurt in week 4 or whatever it is. And, it worked. Fantasy football has a way of doing that. But for him to lose Meredith immediately, who was the highest upside part of that, the other brutal part of it was that the keeper value for Cameron Meredith was owned by Pat.
Exactly. So he would have been returned at the end of the year.
To Pat, no matter what. So,
Yes.
and I think Elliott probably was thinking that, player was traded to him, it's his. But technically, the rights to that player.
Keezer's going to keys.
This is why you don't trade with Keezer, folks, because he may have players where the rights are owned by someone else in the following year. So
We got a bunch of villains in this league.
we don't
Just
have
kidding.
a bunch of villains. We have one villain. We have one villain. All you got to do is look at the tape and see what happened. How does one person get 4 number 1 picks? Just look at the tail of the tape. There's no other way.
It's crazy.
Shenanigans.
So let's dive into the draft. Those were precursors, just some of the crazy, insane chaos that happened before the draft. So Elliott was also given a shirt to wear that says Keezer Rules 1 and 1, and he wore it for the entirety of the draft. Tim released a shithead video in which he...
I thought it was a very respectful video.
It was a good one.
I don't know that Joe has watched it yet. And
I know.
And I hope he does, because I think Joe was expecting the video to be Tim just like guns blazing, middle fingers out. But it was actually a very nice balance of I think I'm going to have a good team, and I understand my responsibilities.
And I'm sorry. It was like this 5-minute
Yeah, no,
apology
he
video.
he did a really nice job.
But the cool thing about it was that he unveiled
Mm-hmm.
2 giant paper cardboard cutout
Foam core.
foam core heads of not Elliot, of Joe and Robin,
Mm-hmm.
our 2 past presidents. And then as we were watching the video, Elliot came out of a back room holding
Yep.
the heads that Tim was doing, and we were just like dying.
Yeah, pretty
Because
much.
Tim's sitting there holding these giant heads on either side of him as he just straight face gives this like apology video.
Yeah.
And we're cracking up, and then Elliot brings them out and we start taking pictures with them and stuff. And then Elliot says it's something he's going to be doing ongoing with presidents, and I think that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
With it.
And it's they are double-sided also,
Mm-hmm.
so you can't escape them.
Yeah, they're like the one, if you ever watch like basketball, like college basketball or anything, and you see
Mm-hmm.
the fans and they hold up big giant heads. It's essentially that, and they're awesome. So
It's pretty good. I'm quite excited, and they are sitting here. I'm looking at them right now, both Joe and I, and it's great. I think that's an awesome addition that the presidents of the league get a foam core.
it's like a Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, and plus, like the NFL fat heads,
Yes.
like on the wall. Like it makes sense for
Yeah.
fantasy football to have these things.
It's cool. So hats off to any other commissioners out there listening, want good ideas for champions or stuff. I think that's something you can definitely do. I
And
think it's fun.
It made for hilarious photo opportunities.
Oh, great!
Just
it was awesome.
They're great. I had a blast. So
All right, so let's go ahead and we'll dive into the draft. Some rounds will go a little bit faster than others, as probably the first 2 or 3 are probably the most important ones. I mean, all the rounds you could say are pretty important, but there's a lot of keepers to be had. So looking at round 1, pick 1, this was braggadocious 1-1. Matt Keyser goes with Antonio Brown. Right, so Robin's sitting there at the 2-3, like he was just saying, felt pretty confident. Went with Julio Jones, went with LaShawn McCoy. No regrets there?
no, absolutely not. I thought there was a decent chance that I'd been talking to Keyser over the course of the past few weeks, and he'd been sending out feelers to a lot of different people trying to figure out what they were going to do.
He sent something to a lot of people.
Draft wise, and I always take everything anybody tells me with a grain of salt when it comes to draft position and what people are doing. He originally told me that he was going to take Julio, and then at the last, right before the draft, he basically said, I'm going to take Antonio Brown. And I almost, like in the back of my mind, it seemed almost like I kind of expected that to be a smokescreen for like a McCoy
Right.
pick or something like that. But like I said, I wasn't going to go nuts trying to figure out what I was going to get. I just knew that 2 out of 3 of those 3 players was going to be good no matter what happened, and that was fine. So,
Right.
So I think if I was him, I probably would have taken McCoy, to be honest.
Yeah. Argument there. He's very heavy top side on the running back position. So I thought that he would go wide receiver. He did. And then this is where I really got surprised. He had the number 4 overall pick. You were in the middle of a Keyser sandwich.
I was,
Felt
unfortunately.
But this is where having 4 first-round draft picks, from the moment I saw that morning that he got the pick, I was like, he's going to get Zeke. He's going to get Zeke. He didn't. He went with AJ Green. And I was very much surprised. It makes sense because, like I said, he needed wide receivers and he needed them pretty badly. But the thought that you're able to go get Antonio Brown, still have some okay wide receivers, and then the thought being that you are already loaded at running back, why not get arguably the best one, even with the suspension? He doesn't.
And I think the way the rest of the first and second round played out, that wide receiver he needed was there in the second and in the end of the latter end of the first too. So
Right. So AJ Green, I mean, you can't be mad at having Antonio Brown and AJ Green at all. But I was surprised. I thought with all of that, all that talent hedged in the first round, you could take a risk there.
Yep.
He didn't. He went safe with AJ Green.
But I mean, if you look at it, that's the order those players should have gone. Like in terms of ADP and rank, it should have gone Antonio
Right.
Brown, Julio, and McCoy, and AJ Green. Like
Right.
that's 1 through 4. That's probably how it should have gone.
Right.
But from a need standpoint, maybe you're right.
And so one of the things that I had preached in the pre-draft episode was that some of the teams that could roster Zeke that weren't looking to just move him at the end of towards the middle of the season after they're about to get eliminated for fodder for next season. The 3 teams that I had were Tim, Elliott, Keezer, and then you could maybe make the argument somebody like near you, like some of the higher end teams could probably survive long enough till he comes off the suspension and then make the playoff run. And Tim did. Tim had that same mindset. He saw Zeke come to him and he picked him up
Yep.
right away. And then the crazy thing was I had briefly touched on the possibility that maybe he tries to pull a Brady and prolong the hearing throughout the year and it won't come into effect until next year. At first, that didn't look like it was going to happen. It looked like the 6-game suspension was going to hold, and now there's reports that it's already starting to get prolonged. First, it was going to be tomorrow. Now it's Thursday, and now the rumors are starting to come out from people in the NFL that he might pull a Tom Brady.
Yep.
And Tim might get a full year of Ezekiel Elliott.
He might. He might. It's possible. I think it's possible that the 6-game suspension gets upheld.
Right.
And I think that's still very, very possible. I think that's overwhelmingly the biggest possibility, which I think if you asked him of the possibilities I'm about to detail out, he would take that more than what's next. But I think there's also a possibility that the legal process carries out and Zeke plays maybe 5 games and then gets suspended for 5 or 6 games and then gets suspended after that, and you lose Zeke for a playoff run.
Exactly.
It's also possible he plays the entire year, which I don't think is likely.
I think after the Brady thing, it feels like Goodell wouldn't do that because he got a lot of...
Yeah. I think that the NFL is not going to be keen on that, and that they were aware of that possibility going into this and would not have just simply left themselves open to that in this case. And I think that this prolonged appeal might reflect that. So I think he's going to get his 6 games right off the bat, and that Tim will have him for a playoff run. But there's also a possibility it drags on longer. Who knows?
Right.
We'll see. This whole thing has been so muddled and protracted. It's hard to
completely altered the entire state from my first mock to today. It's
I had
different.
100%. The only scenario in which I would have drafted Zeke would be if he made it to me in the 3rd round.
Right. Exactly.
That was the only scenario, and for the only reason that I could then keep him in the 1st.
Right.
The following year.
Right.
And so I had completely. There was no way under any circumstances, no matter what the news, I was going to do it. Just because, for a couple of reasons, I don't trust that this kid can stay out of trouble. So if he takes his 6 games, number one, it's 6-game suspension. Dallas bye week is week 7. So he comes back in week 8. So it's essentially a 7-week suspension if it starts right away. This is a guy whose own father has come out saying, you got to keep him on the football field. This kid doesn't know how to stay out of trouble. So he's got, 6, 7, 8 weeks off of football away from everything. Who's to say he doesn't punch someone else in the face or get a DUI or do any number of the things that he has shown that he's capable of in the past. So I kind of had just like X'd him off my draft board.
Right.
I didn't think there was a scenario in which he would make it to the third round because the talent is too enticing. But I wasn't going to buy it. Like I legitimately think that he could miss 6 games, do something to screw it up even worse, and miss the whole season.
Anything is possible.
Yeah.
At the number 6 spot, we have DeMarco Murray going to Belching Beavers. A very solid pick. He's probably the last of the, probably I guess, in for this draft, you say top tier running backs. He was the last one pretty much.
Yep.
Took over from there. So I think Marcos did a great job trading back to the 6th spot. Got DeMarco Murray. Still one of the best offenses in the league, behind one of the best offensive lines, and should be a really good pick for him. Brienne goes with Des Bryant, number 7 overall. And this is actually where I thought that Ezekiel Elliott would go, just for trade fodder for when he gets off his suspension.
Yep.
You just drive up the bidding war as much as possible amongst playoff contenders. But it didn't happen. She still got Des Bryant. And not bad. And then Braggadocious is up again at the 8th spot. And I guess I wasn't like, it's not too surprising, but I definitely didn't have Gronk going here
So
at 8 overall. But I think it's him just trying to round out his team and just pick the best players at each spot.
Yep. I wasn't surprised, especially since, I wasn't surprised that he did it, but it did seem like something that wasn't necessary given that he had Jimmy Graham.
Right.
So
That was my thought process. And I think he had another tight end too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just kind of thinking like he wouldn't need to go there. But, I mean, and that's also really interesting because then what is Jimmy Graham just sitting on
it's his
your
flex.
bench?
It's his flex.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
for sure. Definitely the
Right.
flex play in this case.
Yeah, he's been doing well in Seattle too. So, at the 9th spot, we had Joe. He went to Todd Gurley. That's where I had Gurley going in my mock. And yeah, I just think he's the next best available running back. And you just have to think he just went through the sophomore slump. And if you buy into that offense being somewhat more inventive than doing fucking fly sweeps to Ty Austin, you have to think that
Yeah,
it's a little bit easier for him. Or excuse
Yeah.
me, Tavon Austin.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I don't think Todd Gurley
I hope
could
so.
have been any worse than he was last year.
Goff still doesn't look like an NFL
No.
quarterback.
I thought he would make a little bit more of a leap this year.
Yeah.
But I've seen him twice in the preseason, and I'm just kind of like, oh, man.
Yep. Not good.
Granted, he doesn't have like the best offensive line, but still, it's
He's
like,
got a bad offensive line. And there was the trade with Sammy Watkins moving to his team, and so he's got to try and figure out chemistry with the new wide receiver. So, but yeah, not looking great for Goff.
at the 10 spot, the Cat Whisperer. Matt Hughes takes Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
Which I thought either Cooper or Cooks would go there.
Yep.
He went with Cooper. I know everybody in the draft room was kind of like, "Whoa, you didn't take Cooks because of the Edelman injury and stuff." And I get that, but at the same time, it's like,
I think Cooper was a fine pick there.
I'm
not
fine.
worried about it at all. And I know that everybody's going nuts about Cooks because of the Edelman injury, but you got to remember who Cooks is and the style of player he is. Cooper is going to be a lot more consistent.
yes.
So, I mean, there will be weeks where Cooks just goes absolutely bananas and wins your entire week for you. But you could also have some weeks where he gets shut down and gets, 6 points.
Right.
And I don't think that that's going to be the case for Cooper. I think you can count on 8-9 points no matter what, and get several of those games where he's in the 15 to 20.
Right.
So
I think it's a very good pick. He was a little down about it himself, but I tried to pick him up. I was like, dude, it's okay.
no, that's
very
fine.
good wide
I think
receiver.
that was just fine.
And at the 11 spot, Melvin Gordon kept by Braggadocious. Has to be happy about that. Very good. Running back in what should be a very good offense this year. And then Tahir at the 12 spot. This surprised me a little bit. Not that it was a rookie running back, but the rookie running back that he took. Dalvin Cook out of Minnesota at the number 12 overall spot.
So I totally disagree. I think Dalvin Cook is the best of them all.
Okay.
So I kind of agree with it. He doesn't have the best situation,
Right.
but I think he's the best pure running back. And
Yeah.
all he has to hold off has been Latavius Murray.
Right. My thing that scares me about him is, you said it, situation. He's not in the best. I'm a
Yep.
big situation guy.
Yep.
And I do think he's insanely talented. I think he's a more true running back than McCaffrey, who kind of,
Absolutely.
even at Stanford, was
Yeah.
moved all over the field. And way more explosive than your boy Hunt, which we'll get into. But I'm just like, they tried to make the offensive line better in Minnesota, but there's still that Minnesota offense. Mm-hmm. Their quarterback play is still questionable. You still don't know what you're going to get out of the wide receivers.
The offensive line is not terrific
Right.
by any stretch of the imagination.
But I do think that, and I talked with Tahir after, and he said, I was trying, I had to go for the most boom or bust plays.
And that's the part that I agree. And I think personally, looking at McCaffrey and we can get into how I ranked those rookie running backs.
Sure, we will when we get to
further
your
on.
draft pick.
But to me, Dalvin Cook was the best of them, in my opinion. So I think that he did fine. But if he needed a running back, what are you going to take? Lamar Miller there, Marshawn Lynch.
Right.
If you're in that position and you need to hit a home run, Dalvin Cook could be a home run. Lamar Miller, you know what he is. Marshawn Lynch, you have no idea.
Right.
And if who knows? I guess it could be a home run, but I don't think so. So I think Tahir did a good job there.
So let's go ahead and recap round one. We have Antonio Brown going to Braggadocious, Julio and LaShawn McCoy going to Robin, AJ Green going to Braggadocious, Zeke going to Yosoi Fiesta, Tim, DeMarco Murray going to Belching Beavers, Des Bryant going to Baked Brie, Gronk going to Braggadocious, Todd Gurley going to Joe, whose team name got changed to Team. Why did he change his team name to Team?
I think Joe had a bit of an existential crisis when I got Doug Martin from your brother.
Oh, really?
No, I don't. I have no idea. But I don't know why he did that.
Yeah, he did that,
To
and
be
then he went on
honest.
a little bit of a tirade in Slack, and I was
Yeah,
just like, what's
I
happening
just-
right now?
I don't know.
okay.
But
Amari Cooper went 10th overall to the Cat Whisperer. Melvin Gordon being capped at the 11th spot by Braggadocious, and then Dalvin Cook at the 12th spot. Overall, pretty good first round. Starting off the second round, another surprise pick. I was surprised by this. Tahir goes with Marshawn Lynch.
yep, that
And-
was a surprise.
So here's the thing. I had not seen him play in the preseason. And then yesterday, I think it was, I was hanging out, grabbing dinner over at my parents' house, and they had the Raiders Dallas
Yes.
preseason game on. And I was watching Marshawn Lynch run. And I'm not going to lie to you, he looked like Marshawn from the Seahawks, like the pre-injury. And that's when I was like, you know what? That might not have been a bad pick, because it was taking like 5-6 Dallas Cowboys starting
Yep.
And defenders to take him down. And I
That
was
Oakland offense has so many weapons, you can't commit to any one
Exactly.
particular player. So he's going to have the luxury of all those weapons, Crabtree and Cooper,
Cooks, tight end.
Yep.
And, right.
And so there's they have so many options with the ball and such a good offense that it's a great situation for Lynch to be in.
And again, with the boomer bust mentality, like after seeing him play, I was like, you know what? That's kind of the thing you got to do. You got to take the risk on this. Am I going to get, the 1,200, 1,300 yard Marshawn Lynch with, double-digit touchdowns? Like, if he can stay healthy and run the way that I saw him running in the preseason, where he's like dragging defensive linemen and middle linebackers, 2 or 3 extra yards, I mean, he could get the one last great swan song from Marshawn Lynch. So, I mean, I was very skeptical of it, but I also kind of got to tip my hat to him if it truly does work out. But I was surprised. I'm not gonna lie. Belching Beavers went with Brandon Cooks. Felt like very solid.
Yeah.
Nothing super sexy.
A great pick. I mean, the fact that Cooks made it to him there in the second round is great.
Yeah. It definitely...
I mean, when I was looking at it, I thought that Tahir would go running back, wide receiver. So I thought that Cooks went to Tahir right there.
Right.
Because he seemingly... I felt that still Cooper was ranked higher and was more consistent, and that Cooks would go right there. Or I also had some situations where I thought that Gronk would make it to him, and that's where Gronk would, his last stand would be.
Right. That's when Gronk went to Keizer. That's when I knew that Marcos would be going with it. Because I knew that if Gronk was there, he would take him.
Oh, for sure. If Gronk made it past to here, there's no. Aaron
Rodgers was just my safety valve. I took Aaron Rodgers. I'm at the third pick in the second round. And I was hoping for any combination of Brandon Cooks, Amari Cooper, or Gronk to fall there. Because I didn't keep Zach Ertz in the 6th, so I knew that I needed a tight end. And so when none of them were there, I mean, I was bummed. But at the same, because I'm a very much of the mindset that, you take quarterback later. That's kind of how I think. But I was like, you know what? I need a quarterback, and he's maybe, you could argue, the best available player there. So I just took.
I'd say so.
I took him. And I wasn't doing backflips, but it was, Aaron Rodgers.
Well, you saw that you made the right choice based on what happened in the picks ensuing.
Exactly. So right behind me was Nate Silver-Sith taking Christian McCaffrey. In one of my earlier mocks, I had him going with Christian McCaffrey. And then as his stock rose, I had McCaffrey actually going at the 12th spot to Tahir. But Elliott ended up going with him, and he was debating on which one he starts, either him or Jonathan Stewart. And I was like, dude, you start both of them. Like, you kind of have to. Like,
yeah, unfortunately, you do.
Right? You got to just, bank that there's going to be enough touches for both of them, and they both kind of combine into one super back somehow.
That's for me, the biggest worry on McCaffrey is you still have Stewart, and you still have Cam Newton in the red zone. And when you get down in the red zone, between those two and Kelvin Benjamin.
And Greg Olsen.
I think McCaffrey's got to score all his points between the 20s.
Right.
And that's not a great recipe for consistent success.
Right. I think all-purpose yards, he'll be over 1,000.
Oh, yeah.
And then you tack on, the not large amount of points, but we have some points now for return yards. I think that it helps his value.
Yes.
But it's going to be like, where's he going to get the touchdowns?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and we could be wrong. We saw Cam Newton get injured and get a concussion last season too. Mm-hmm. And perhaps he's not going to run the ball as much as he has in the past.
They said they want to keep him healthy, and they want him to get the ball out quick. So we'll see.
If that's the case, that's one less player. But I still think you get to the red zone, you're going to see Cam Newton get some touchdowns.
Yeah, he'll do his thing.
So you may not see Cam Newton rushing the ball as much between the 20s, but I think you get close to that end zone, he's going to smell it and go.
And this is where, like you were saying, the next pick, Braggadocious 1-1 at the 17th overall pick. He went with Drew Brees.
Yep.
Which, as you were saying, me going with Aaron Rodgers, Kind of.
I think he was really hoping that Aaron Rodgers made it to him there, and I think he'd be the first to admit that he maybe let that thought process poison his pick.
You think so?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's finish. Hold that thought. We'll finish round 2, and then I want to hear what you have to say about that, because he did try and trade to my spot, which now makes sense, because he was trying to, again, get best available position player, Aaron Rodgers. But he goes with Drew Brees at 17 overall. Next, Belching Beavers, Greg Olsen, which I was just like, dude, another super solid pick.
Yep.
Greg Olsen, tight end.
That was another one where I was like, damn it. I was really hoping he lasted to me in the third.
Right. Which he could have. And then 19 overall, Belching Beavers go with Joe Mixon at running back, which ended up later on in the day, we find out Jeremy Hill hurt his ankle. So
the Oracle strikes again.
Another good pick. The Cat Whisperer goes with Lamar Miller at 20 overall.
And the fact that Lamar Miller made it to him there is great.
Gotta like that.
I mean, he's got to have no complaints about that.
No. And again, I think last year was kind of the floor with him. It's like he had no help from his quarterback because they couldn't throw to anybody, so everybody stacked the box. If he even gets a little bit of help this year, kind of like with Todd Gurley, you should get a very good year to Lamar Miller.
Yep.
So the next 3 picks are keepers. We had Jordy Nelson kept by Joe, Mark Ingram kept by me, Mike Evans kept by me, and then the Belching Beavers went with T.Y. Hilton that fell all the way to round 24. And the fact that...
Pick 24.
Excuse me. Pick 24. Thank you. And the fact that we still haven't heard anything about Andrew Luck and when he's coming back, or if he's even throwing a football. Definitely
scary news.
Doesn't
for sure.
sound good for T.Y. Hilton.
I mean, it makes sense that he fell so far, and it's kind of one of those spots where you get that late, and even I totally understand Marcos's pick there, because had Marcos passed on him, I would have been like, well, I have to pick T.Y. Hilton, right?
Right.
You know, like, you have to. He's too talented to ignore him.
Right.
You know, so I think that, and given how many picks he had, I think that was a smart choice. He just had to do it.
Right. Do you want to go back to your thought on me taking Aaron Rodgers?
Sure.
Okay.
I think that
and how it affected the Drew Brees.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. Keyser took Antonio Brown in the beginning, and he has a lot of Pittsburgh players. He has Ben Roethlisberger, he has Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, and Martavius Bryant. So it's 4 Pittsburgh players. Pretty heavy on that on one team, which, as we know, can be playoff death. So I think that he was expecting that he could get Aaron Rodgers based on what it was, and that would help insulate him from that playoff downfall. If
when they rest everybody,
if the Steelers had a bad game, or if they're resting people, whatever, he still has Aaron Rodgers and can, it's not a complete breakup, and he's not relying on a 4th round quarterback.
Right.
So, and Drew Brees certainly is going to be good. There's no question about that. But I think that was way too soon, and that he could have gotten a player that would have helped him more now. Like, I think going backwards, he would tell you that he should have taken Lamar Miller in that spot, or even Mixon, or any.
Right.
Had Mixon hadn't gone yet, right?
No, Mixon went 2 picks later.
Exactly. So Lamar Miller went right after, right?
Yeah, it went Drew Brees, Greg Olsen, Joe Mixon, Lamar Miller.
Yeah. So I think that obviously he wouldn't take Greg Olsen.
And Kareem Hunt was still on the board.
Well, yeah.
Which we'll get into in the third round.
We will get into that. But I've talked to him a little bit about it too. So I know that he's not, not as excited about it, depending on, on how his draft played out. But I think that was a little bit of a he had in his mind that he was going to get that second elite quarterback, and that's what he executed.
So round 3, Belching Beavers getting that wraparound pick goes with Leonard Fournette at 25 overall,
which is exactly what he should have done.
I was thinking somebody who goes 2 picks later.
Got it. Well, I don't.
We'll get there. We'll get there. But 26 overall, Demaryius Thomas, which I think is very solid.
Yeah. I did not have a draft
receiver
scenario where Demaryius Thomas made it to me, and I think it's just pure Denver quarterback fear.
Yeah.
And
you saw what he did with the crappy quarterback last year.
Exactly. Same thing like you said with Lamar Miller. We saw the floor, and it's still 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah. It's like, I'll take it.
Yeah, so in the 3rd round, yes, I will take that.
And then the next pick, Kareem Hunt goes to Robin of Fart Apocalypse.
And this is the jewel of my draft.
Oh yeah.
This is the piece that I did not know was there to begin with before the draft, like before Spencer Ware got injured.
Right.
He was a player that was on my kind of hype list.
Right.
But that I knew based on where my draft was that I would, if I was going to get him, he would have to go undrafted. Because I'm not going to draft him in the 4th with Spencer Ware. And I don't have any picks after the 4th. So I would have had to hope that he didn't get drafted, which is not possible. He would have been drafted in the 7th or the 8th or something like that.
Yeah.
At worst.
At worst, if people, for whatever reason... Yeah, it would have had to have taken a report where people were just like, Spencer Ware is our guy.
And so when the Spencer Ware injury came down that morning, I was really excited because at worst it meant that another player was thrust into the rankings in front of me, thus leaving me better players in the 3rd.
Exactly.
And I didn't really think that he would make it to me in the 3rd, but I knew that was exactly what I wanted.
I was like, he is a 1st or mid-second rounder at least. And when he kept falling, I was just like, oh my God.
So that was something, and maybe I should have taken him with the other one, but I had them in my queue in the rankings, and that's how it was. I had Demaryius Thomas. I thought he was going way earlier, so he was in my queue ahead of Kareem Hunt.
Right.
And so I just, jumped on that. But he was someone, I have a major fantasy boner for Kareem Hunt.
It's a real boner.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now.
Just based on Andy Reid and what he's done with running backs and how he bases his offense around feature backs that can catch the ball, pass block, and run.
They don't come off the field.
Kareem Hunt can do all of that. He also, when you watch his highlights, he's kind of hard to tackle. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what you want in the NFL. You want a guy that has good balance and can take a hit and stay up, and that gets you extra yards and touchdowns, and is kind of the perfect Alex Smith back. I think that Kareem Hunt is going to be now. So Spencer Ware last year, missing, I believe, 4 games.
Yeah, well, it's not that he missed them; it's that they were still trying to work Jamal Charles in.
Yeah. Got it. So in, I believe, like 10 or 12 games, Spencer Ware was the 16th back in fantasy purposes. Yeah. So to me, I look at Kareem Hunt, and barring injuries, I have a top 15 back.
Yeah, you have like a 1,400 all-purpose yard.
Yeah. So that's what I look at. And I think that maybe everyone doing their draft boards wasn't ready for that change in that day and what that was. I already knew that I really liked the guy, but I think that he absolutely should have been, at worst, a 2nd-round pick.
Right. Michael Crabtree goes to Elliott Nate Silver-Sith in the next pick, 28 overall, which could just end up being essentially Amari Cooper, because the past 2 years, they've actually past 2 years, they've equated one another in yards. More touchdowns for Michael Crabtree. He is the red zone preferred target. So he could essentially have scored Amari Cooper there. But
yeah.
we'll see.
And I honestly thought about taking Crabtree over Demaryius Thomas, but the fact that I have Carr, I kind of prefer to diversify rather than pairing. I don't really believe in the whole pairing your quarterback.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I feel like that's honestly more of a weakness. Like it can be boom, but it can be bust just as easily. And when you have bye weeks, you're at a disadvantage.
Right. Amir Abdullah goes next at 29 overall.
Another great pick.
Houston Oilers. Amir Abdullah, love him there. I think I had him going at the beginning of the third, but still, really good pick. Larry Fitzgerald goes to Tim, who's still, as of right now, the best wide receiver in Arizona until somebody says otherwise.
He also gave up a 2018 second-round pick for that.
Oh, interesting.
That was Scott's third-round pick. So
that's right.
Larry Fitzgerald was acquired for a 2018 second-round pick, ladies and gentlemen.
So I was fishing for Scott's third pick, and some of the people that I were looking for, all of them were drafted ahead of time. So I'm really happy that I did not trade up and get that spot. Jameis Winston goes to Baked Brie at 31 overall, followed by DeAndre Hopkins, who's kept by Tim at 32. Carlos Hyde is kept by Joe at 33. Devontae Parker, I believe, is kept? No.
He was drafted.
Drafted by the Cat Whisperer. Darren McFadden. I was kind of surprised to see Darren McFadden go in the third round by the Houston Oilers, which now might look really, really bad, especially with the Zeke stuff.
Yeah.
Le'Veon Bell kept in the third by Braggadocious 1-1. So, pretty good third round. And so you wait even till next year. There's going to be even more value in those second and third rounds. Fourth round, some of this, it's probably, I'll just go more significant draft picks. Golden Tate goes to the all the way down in the fourth round. I had him going in the third.
To me, he was a third-round pick.
Yeah.
I mean, I frankly had him ahead of Fitzgerald.
Yeah, this is a good value pick by. So even though Matty Hughes feeling a little bit down about his draft on draft day, I think when he looks back at it, got to feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I think he did great.
I was a little bit. Well, maybe not a little bit. That's probably about where he is. Brandon Marshall went to Elliott, and he's essentially, a light version of Des Bryant. He's, a big, huge-bodied receiver that you're hoping to get you red zone targets.
This should have been Doug Martin. Elliott should have taken Doug Martin there.
So we're about to get into that. Delaney Walker was not kept. He was drafted 40th overall after Golden Tate.
Yep.
And then the next two picks, I was hoping for either of them to fall to me. They didn't. Tim goes with Doug Martin at 41 overall, Yo Soy Fiesta, and then Sammy Watkins goes to Robin at 42.
And those are no-brainers. Like, the fact that those two players landed to us in those positions just meant some people messed up in front of us.
And it was one, and it happens to anybody that's ever drafted has had that. Oh my God, this person might fall to me, or this person might fall to me, and then they go like right before you.
And then all you're thinking about is what you missed out on, rather than what you should be doing.
And I'm looking at best available. I was picking over, Frank Gore and people like that, and I was just like, well, I'll take Jeremy Maclin because you never know, he might get a bunch of targets in Baltimore. Who knows, but. Jeremy Maclin ended up going as my pick to kind of hedge the Edelman loss that I had. Not quite the same, but still. Kelvin Benjamin kept at 44 overall, which could end up being a good fourth-round draft pick the way he's been playing. He's slimmed down and has been an absolute monster. Frank Gore, which I called, going to Joe, the next pick. And then Chris Hogan, which could be a nice little surprise for Brienne at
pretty early, round. But
right,
considering that Amendola is undrafted and possibly claimed tonight,
right. Devontae Freeman being kept, and then Deshaun Jackson, last pick of the fourth, and then the any other notable ones. Andrew Luck going in the fifth. I was a little bit surprised that Scott went with him in the fifth. I thought that was a little bit weird. Eddie Lacy going in the fifth.
I feel like Andrew Luck could have been one of those like Tom Brady undrafted. Had Scott not taken him there, I feel like it could have been one of those things where where Andrew Luck just makes it to the 14th round or something stupid.
Which
like
I was
that.
looking at, because then I would have been like, I would pick him up and just hold him on them. For
Yeah. Because it's still like in the 5th round, do you really want to keep Andrew Luck in the 3rd? You know, that's not amazing value.
Right.
The way we see these things happen, that's, at most 1. But when you do that, you miss out on opportunity. When the draft doesn't pan out exactly how you see it, you're there to strike.
Right. So Zach Ertz went in the 5th. That was somebody that I was hoping to come back to me in the 6th, where I was going to keep him, but he didn't. So another solid pickup by Marcos, although that does give him 2 tight ends. Mm-hmm. Some other picks, Danny Woodhead went to Elliott, which is kind of okay. And then Eddie Lacy also went in the 5th, which is okay. And those are kind of all the...
Yeah, after that, we start to get into the poke and pray rounds.
Right. So me, I got to the 6th round and was trying to look at what was there. Zay Jones went right before me, which is another person I might have considered taking in the 6th round as a possible 4th round keeper. But after he was gone, I was looking at like Eric Decker, Giovanni Bernard, a bunch of...
You went Decker, didn't you?
No, I went with Justin Tucker.
Okay.
Because I knew that I wasn't going to have another pick until the 13th round.
Yeah. And it was kicker time.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just not draft a kicker? See, I totally disagree with that. Like, number one, if you look at our league right now, we only had 6 defenses drafted.
Yes.
So, and it was very similar with there was more kickers drafted, but to me, I think you got to load up on actual position player talent and figure out the rest later.
Oh, at that point, I mean, I had a ton of keepers. Like Alshon Jeffrey. I had a ton of keeper. At that point, it was like, well, there wasn't really any more that I was going to get that I would actually keep over the people that I already had. So I just kind of figured, well, why don't I get one of the top kickers? But
sure.
I'm trying to look through here, look at some of the other ones. I was really sad to still pick Julian Edelman. I'm trying to look and see if there's any other significant possible.
So one thing I know, I saw that
Corey Davis went in the 8th, which could end up being sneaky good.
Yeah, I saw that Joe Williams was drafted, and rumors out of Niner camp is that he's not even the backup. It's
so weird. It went from he's competing for the starting spot.
Yeah,
he's going to be the starter. They're going to trade. I keep wanting to say Frank Gore. Carlos Hyde.
Yeah.
They're going to trade Carlos Hyde, and then all of a sudden, Carlos Hyde looks good. Joe Williams is a backup. And now it sounds like there's a possibility that he might not even make the team.
Joe Williams might not make the team.
So,
and then similar stuff up in Seattle, which is that Eddie Lacy might be on the roster bubble.
Right.
Which I don't think is true, but they got that kid Carson up there who has apparently looked terrific, and with Rawls securing the number 1 job, ProSize has the 3rd down back. Right. They're not going to carry both Lacy and Carson, but Lacy was drafted in like the 4th or 5th, right? 5th, maybe?
4th.
Yeah. So, and it could be that he doesn't make it onto that roster.
Yeah, Joe Williams was drafted in the 11th. A lot of quarterbacks and kickers and defenses went here. Going into the 12th.
But that news about Joe Williams was available on draft day. I remember. I read it. And so, seeing that he was drafted kind of surprised me.
O.J. Howard went in the 12th. A lot of the other ones are keepers that are on here. That's why I'm not necessarily saying all of them. I'm trying to find more draft picks. I'll go ahead. Let's see how I'm doing on time.
I think we're doing good. It's 10:30 now.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good.
We started 9:40.
I will say that right? me knowing going into the draft, there were 2 rookies that I were targeting that I was hoping to get in, I think, rounds 13 and 15. and they were ones that I knew weren't going to be essentially the top tier ones, but they were ones that I wanted to keep for the future. And I was able to get both of them.
Oh, okay.
One of which was also targeted by Keezer, because after I made the draft pick in the 12th, he let loose a couple of expletives in the chat. And it was Jamal Williams, who's a rookie running back out of Green Bay.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great pick. I can't believe he went that far.
Well, a lot of that had to do with keepers, because there were a lot of keepers
Totally.
there.
They were. Yeah.
And then, let's see, who did... Matt Prater. Holler. And then in the 14th round, I went with Alvin Kamara.
Okay, great.
I wouldn't say he's the backup. You would probably say Adrian Peterson is a backup.
Yeah.
But he's kind of my safety
But he's looked good. Yeah.
He's my safety net for the future.
Yeah.
For Ingram.
Yep.
So those were two guys that I was targeting from the get-go that I was hoping to get late in the draft. And so I felt good about that. And how I want to end this is when I look at some of the picks that I had, definitely those two were my feel-good picks because they were guys that I actually wanted. Some of my... I don't want to say feel-bad pick, but my pick was kind of like, okay. Like I said, was Aaron Rodgers. I was kind of hoping to get not a top tier wide receiver, but kind of that next tier wide receiver in Cooper or something.
Yeah, so you have Evans, and then after that, you kind of...
Right.
Well, I mean, Pryor is going to be legit.
Right.
Who you kept in the, 13th round?
Right.
12th round? So, I mean, Pryor is going to be great. So you have Evans, Pryor... Alshon. I mean, that's a terrific wide receiving core. It is.
My whole thought process was like, if Alshon doesn't pan out and he gets hurt or does whatever, like I was like, I'll have Edelman, so I can just plug him in. He'll get me 1,000.
Agreed.
4 touchdowns. Then when he got hurt, I was like, oh my god, I really hope one of them falls to me. And when none of them did, it was more of a letdown. But like everybody was saying, so you can't get mad about having.
No, absolutely not.
The one thing I'm worried about is that he started off really slow last year.
Yeah.
And then blew up in like the last 7 or 6 games. And I really hope that doesn't happen this
opening week against Seattle, I don't know if that really,
Right.
Is Seattle as vaunted a defense as it was before? I'm not so sure.
Right.
But
they're always a little bit older, but they're still very good.
Yeah. They
have Earl Thomas back, who was injured last year. And that adds a little something to their secondary, but we'll see, man. Sure. So what are some of your picks that you felt really good about? I wasn't necessarily thrilled with Macklin. That was probably my meh pick. But go ahead and give me picks that you just felt great about.
I only had 5, so I went McCoy. I went Julio, McCoy, Demaryius Thomas, Kareem Hunt, and then Sammy Watkins.
Okay.
Those were my 5 picks. And honestly, they were all... the only one I wanted, Doug Martin, at the point where I took Sammy Watkins, and he went right in front of me.
Right.
So that was the only one where I was like, I wanted that. The other ones were instant. I knew with Julio and McCoy, that was obvious. I knew who I was going to take. When it got to the 3rd round, seeing those 2 on the board at that point, it was a no-brainer to me. I didn't think there was anyone else I should even consider in those spots, especially given my depth at running back in the 3rd round. There was no reason for me to consider a wide receiver or anybody else because I was so stacked at running back at that point. So, I mean, Kareem Hunt is by far the thing I'm most excited about. I think that he's got great potential, and I hope that I'm keeping him in the 1st round next year.
Yeah, I was going to say, he also has that potential to be a 1st-round keeper.
Yeah. So, and then I made a trade with Tim, and I got Doug Martin.
Yeah.
So.
And what were all the details of that trade?
I traded Tim Tevin Coleman and Taylor Gabriel for Doug Martin.
No draft picks?
No draft picks. So Tim gets Tevin Coleman, who is a very good running back. He's kind of like the 1B to Devontae Freeman's 1A. Terrific passing down back. for the Falcons. He has Matt Ryan, as we know. So I think that's partially motivating there is having that to pair with his with Matt Ryan. And if something ever happens to Devontae Freeman, he becomes an elite RB1. He's already a solid RB2, and it wasn't going to start on my team, and can be kept next year with a third, which is probably kind of steep, but you never know. With a player like that, he's very explosive and sneaky and is great pass-catching back. So he's got a lot of value, and at that point, Tim's team with, Zeke, not knowing what was going to go on, he had Jordan Howard, David Johnson, and not much. He didn't really have any other running backs that were ready to plug in. So if something happened to one of those two, he didn't really have another player to plug in. So Tevin Coleman easily, if say Jordan Howard goes down week 1, Tevin Coleman is a great stopgap.
Yeah.
And Taylor Gabriel is really kind of the third wide receiver in that Atlanta offense, and
he's that boomer bust flex guy.
He really is. He's a deep threat. He's got terrific speed. He can get you a lot of points really quickly. And again, if Julio Jones goes down, he becomes a huge cog in that offense. But kind of giving him upside, and what I got back was Doug Martin, who was suspended for the first 3 weeks, and so he got players that he can plug in right away, and I got a player that I have to wait for at a position that I have a lot of depth at,
and a player that I'm happy to see out of my division.
So I was pumped on that, and I think that Tim wouldn't have agreed to the trade if he didn't think it was good for him too. So I think there's a lot to be said for Tevin Coleman. He's extremely underrated. So, but I get now. I mean, running back is by far my strongest unit. I have LaShawn McCoy, Kareem Hunt, C.J. Anderson, Rob Kelly, Doug Martin, and C.J. Procise.
Yeah.
So I have depth and depth and depth.
It's a lot of stuff to play with, to work with, which is good. And you got Devontae Adams, Julio Jones, and it could be...
So Devontae Adams, Julio Jones, Jordan Matthews, Demaryius Thomas.
Well, I just mean, I was thinking starters.
Starters, it'll probably be Julio, Devontae, Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah.
Those will be my 3. And then Jordan Matthews off the bench.
Right.
And Sammy Watkins.
See what happens.
To me, Sammy Watkins, I think his first 3 weeks are going to be rough.
Yeah. It's
and I think it's more of a waiting game. I think he's going to be really good towards the latter part of the season when he develops chemistry with Goff.
Right. And
then he's going to be good. But to me, I plan on keeping him on my bench until he shows me what he can do.
Amen, brother.
So,
anything else about the draft day, draft festivities?
It was a blast. I really want to thank Elliot.
I do too.
He put a lot of effort into it and a lot of thought, and it was awesome. And thank you, Elliot. It's always great to get everyone together and do a draft like that, and the whole atmosphere was great, and there was food, and he tried to do a live draft board, but the board wasn't really configured for our league,
No.
Unfortunately, which is not surprising because we're fairly unique,
right?
But just that the level of effort from Elliot is something that we all need to appreciate, given what other fantasy leagues can be like, and how little you can get from some commissioners. The fact that he went out of his way to put this on at his house, with a newborn, mind you.
Right.
So thanks to Elliot, and I really appreciate all of that.
I second that, Elliot. Great time had by all. Pool and beers and family and friends.
It was terrific.
It was good. Good times. We are about... Yeah, we're about out of time. We just went over an hour. I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on.
I don't think so. I mean, I think the only other stuff would be, we talked briefly in the drama of the league and stuff like that, and how many people we had kind of sell for next year. But that could be a whole nother podcast of information.
Yeah, we'll do another one. We'll do another one this week.
It's definitely interesting. We should in the future discuss. We'll tease forward the strategy that was employed by multiple teams this year of selling their high value assets, their first round picks and whatnot for the future, because they felt that the top end of this league was too much to overcome.
Right.
So
season I think is getting underway on Thursday.
Well, not this Thursday,
Not
the
this
following.
Thursday.
So because you're going to put this out tomorrow, which is Wednesday, right? Wednesday the 30th.
Yes.
So the season starts on Thursday, the 7th?
Yeah, so the one more week of off-season football, the last week, the dress rehearsal, so to speak, and then we're going to get after it. But yeah, we're going to talk about all that stuff, a lot of things been happening.
Yeah.
But league, let's keep it good.
Let's all drop the drama. Make your fucking team names what they should be.
Right.
Stop this fucking nonsense and stop complaining about shit, and just go out, make your waiver wire claims, stay competitive, and win.
Yeah, and have fun.
Knock all this bullshit off. Enough of this bullshit.
Yeah, we definitely need
This
to.
catty shit needs to stop.
I think it's always good to have a little bit of pettiness, but let's keep it at a fun minimum.
Let's take it down from 11 to 6.75.
We could even go to 4. Let's go to 4. That sounds good.
Well, I mean, I was trying to stay realistic here.
We're not even at week 1.
There's still some feuds that are far from settled. So, you know.
But we'll go ahead, and I think we will both put it out there to the league that let's try and we can still change it up before it gets too out of hand. So
or you can just win.
Or that.
And stop complaining. Just win, and then that'll be cool. Or don't win and shut up. One or the other. Like, if I start losing, I'm not going to bitch. I'm going to trade my high-value players and stack up.
You got to stack up.
And keep working that waiver wire and try to work on winning, no matter what it is.
Got to find that value. It's there every year, everybody. You can't give up because that value is there. You can find it. But we'll dig into that. We'll get Robin, and we always do our we look to the week 1. We'll do that next week. So that should be a lot of fun, and we'll address all the shenanigans and going.
Yeah, I suppose we should probably do like a projections pod type thing.
We typically get stuff from Pat and Scott.
Look ahead at the week to come and who we think's going to win. Got some great matchups.
We do. We do. It should be good all across the board. I don't think there's any big
Tim versus Elliott
blowouts.
Really big matchup.
A lot of good stuff.
Really huge. Joe versus Brienne, another huge matchup.
So that means you're facing Marcos.
It is. It does.
Ooh, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
almost want to dive into it.
That's what I was getting at.
Can't dive into it yet. We'll dive into it next week. Start thinking about those matchups. Oh, it'll be fun.
It's going to be great. I can't wait. Cannot wait.
Make sure check out Robin has a podcast, a disc golf podcast. Check them out on every place you can find a podcast because they're probably there.
We are on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, all those different things.
Wherever social media,
whatever pod fetching app you use, we're most likely there, and you can find us on Twitter at the DiscPod. You can find us on Instagram at the Disc Golf Podcast, Facebook.com/the Disc Golf Podcast. You can also hit our website, which is throwstuffatstuff.com. If you want to find us there too.
Buy some merch.
If you want to learn about disc golf, there's a lot of overlap. It's sports, man. It's fun.
Go to Wikipedia and then search disc golf, and you will learn everything you need to learn.
Yeah, maybe
about disc golf.
Maybe probably.
I don't know.
I'm sure it's a great wiki.
But thank you guys so much for listening. Always appreciate it. Hit me up at Peter Livingston or shoot us an email at ffdynastypod. This is the Dynasty podcast, and we will be heading up week 1 next week. I can't believe it's actually here. It's insane. It's crazy. Week 1 coming up. Waivers end tonight. Free agency starts tomorrow. We have a 2.5 over-under on waiver claims. What do you got?
I'm going to take the over.
I took the over, too.
I think that, number one, I can see 3 players on there that should be claimed. So I take it that way. I look at those 3 players. I say, yep, those are 3 players that should be owned.
You can write me your 3, and then we will revisit those 3 next week. And
Okay.
We'll see if you're right or not.
Okay, sounds good.
Honest to goodness truth. I won't change them. He will let me know what his 3 are, and then we will let you know how accurate our vice president is in guessing waiver claims. Do you want to guess who makes the claims too?
No,
that too much?
I don't know. I don't know who actually wins the claims
Okay.
because I haven't seen who has priority and what.
I'm like
and
last.
I honestly can't remember because it goes based on your playoff finish and where you picked, and so the lower you are in the draft, the higher your priority. So I know that my priority is way back, and so is yours.
I'm 11th.
Yeah, so I think that would make me 10th, and that would then make Marcos would be 12th because he had the number 1 overall pick. So it'll have to be those teams going up. But yeah, I can off the top of my head right now I can think of 3 players that should be owned, and then a number of kickers and defenses. I don't think kickers and defenses will be claimed, but you never know. There's always the Matt Hugheses out there that don't realize you can make free agent claims and just claim those players anyway and waste their waiver priority on kickers and defenses. But, who knows?
It'll be fun. It'll be fun to see. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We will get back to you next week.